Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. Uh, Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. First of all, today's webinar will be recorded. We made available on demand shortly after today's broadcast. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. The audience may ask questions during today's live broadcast by clicking on the questions button on the right-hand side of the BrightTalk web application, and we'll save about 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions. The slides from today's presentation are attached to the BrightTalk webinar page, and you can access those on your own time afterward as well. Now let's get started. My name is Ryan Powell. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at CyCognito, and I'm pleased to be joined by Eilon Bachar, who's going to be presenting on how to leverage automation to scan CISA KEV for high-risk vulnerabilities. Take it away, Eilon. We're excited for your presentation.
Hey, Ryan, thank you very much for the warm welcoming. As mentioned, today we're going to discuss how to use automation for the CISA KEV. But before doing so, let me start with a quick presentation about myself. As said, Eilon Bachar, 29 years old. I live in Tel Aviv with my wife Masha and our cute dog Lola. I served in the 80-100 unit for 7 years. Finished my duty as a captain. I mainly did cyber operations during that time. Lovely times. And for the last 4.5 years, I work at CyCognito. I started as a security analyst, and for the last 2 years, I'm working for the product team. Started as a product analyst, and during the last 18 months, I'm an official product manager, and I own the AST side of the product. AST stands for our automated security testing. Essentially, all of the vulnerabilities that we scan, detect. That's it about me. Well, let's hit the road. So today we're going to discuss, let's go quickly over the agenda. We're going to discuss how security teams manage their risk by using network scanners. We're going to go over the complete end-to-end from scan initiation until vulnerability remediation. We'll talk about the disadvantages of the current process, about the specific areas that make the day-to-day lives more difficult for security teams. Then we'll discuss the CISA. We'll define CISA, and I'll elaborate about its responsibilities. And lastly, we'll go over the CISA KEV, which is one of the main products of CISA, and how the security teams can leverage the KEV in their day-to-day lives. Let's go over the current network scanning flow of security teams. The first step is to run multiple network scanners over known assets. This is essentially running multiple tools, multiple scanners. I gave some examples here, for example, Nmap, OpenVAS, Shodan, W3F, and so on. And running each scanner over a list of known assets that the organization usually holds. And that is the first step, running those scanners over those assets. The second step is to get the vulnerabilities from each scanner, essentially going over results. This part also contains inserting or adding the results of each scanner into the SIEM system, which is the Security Information and Event Management, and later then prioritize those results, order them by importance, and of course the last step is to remediate based on the prioritization of issues. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about issues, vulnerabilities, CVEs. All of the three are the same, so apologies if the language differs. So let's talk a bit about the challenges of this end-to-end process. First is the scanning duration. Network and web application scans can be very time-consuming. Some tools can take hours to scan a single host. and some such as W3AF. Of course, it depends on the modules you run, but the normal scan even can take days to finish. So it can take a lot of time for a scan to be done or to be completed on a single asset. Second challenge is the data volume. Common security scanners produce high volume of results, ranging from hundreds of thousands, from tens of thousands of results to hundreds of thousands of results for even a medium-sized network or medium-sized organization. So the team has to be prepared to handle and prioritize these results effectively. It is hard to handle so many results. The next challenge is the data structure. Each scanner has its own output, which requires manipulation to match the organization's SIEM system. It's important to have the necessary skills, of course, and tools to process and analyze the results in order to feed them into the SIEM. And lastly, which hurts the most, I guess, is the quality. It can be really frustrating for the team to go through an exhausting end-to-end process just to find out that the most critical finding was a false positive. So it's crucial to have a robust verification process to ensure the accuracy of the results. Moving on. Now I'm gonna explain a bit about the CVSS calculation. So CVSS is the main way today that security teams use to prioritize issues or vulnerabilities that the network scanners have detected. So I'm gonna first explain about the main pillars of the CVSS calculation. First, there is the base score. And the base score is based on permanent values, which don't change over time and represent how the vulnerability is being exploited. Examples of its values, two examples are first, attack vector, like how is this vulnerability is exploited from the network itself? Can it be exploited remotely? Another example is privileges required to exploit a given vulnerability. As an attacker, should I have admin rights? Can I have even guest rights or every user rights in order to exploit the vulnerability? So this is the base score. Next is the temporal score. It is based on fields that may change over time, therefore temporal. Examples of it, of two data points of the temporal score are exploit code maturity. Essentially stands for, is there any exploit code available for a given vulnerability, which is really important. We'll deep dive into it in a second. Another example is remediation level. Basically, what is the current remediation available for or to patch or to remediate a given vulnerability. And the last pillar is the environmental score. It contains fields that represent the asset importance to the organization. Of course, VPN will be much more valuable and important to the organization than any other asset, than just a web server, for example. So, as I said, security teams mainly use today for vulnerability prioritization the CVSS base score. And now I'll explain why to me it is not enough to prioritize issues based on the CVSS base score. So the base score, it lacks the real world observations. So I would, as a security team, I would rather focusing on CVEs or vulnerabilities that are likely to be exploited than CVEs that don't. So if I'm focusing only on the base score, ignoring the real world events, so as you see on the first step, I am prioritizing based on, my prioritization is based on CVSS base score alone. So my remediation is non-accurate because I'm prioritizing first based on the base score alone. So I'm focusing on that data alone. And that leaves me, or it may leave, exploitable vulnerabilities behind because I didn't consider the vulnerabilities that are exploited in the wild. So before explaining a bit about CISA and going deeper into the CISA KEV, I'll first explain about the attacker's flow, like how attackers exploit vulnerabilities. So first, of course, attackers want the easiest way in. They want easily exploit vulnerabilities. So they essentially spray the internet and they wait until successful exploitation is achieved. Then the attackers benefit from whatever the exploitation allowed them. Well, this is the impact step. They can either compromise the system or gain sensitive information. In some cases, it may allow them to just shut down the system, like a classic denial of service attack. But that is the flow. They scan the internet, they attack assets that they find, or they attack the assets that may be vulnerable. And once the code is exploited, they can impact organizations. And of course, the goal of the security teams is to make sure that the organization is not breached. So knowing what is being exploited right now, or what vulnerabilities are being exploited or can be exploited, is really essential for the team to prioritize remediation correctly. Okay, now we'll discuss a bit about CISA. CISA is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency of the US. It's a part of the DHS, established in November 2018. Its main missions are first to assess and evaluate risks to critical infrastructure sectors and provide guidance on risk management, provide timely and actionable information on threats, vulnerabilities, and best practices. And of course, the direct product of this bullet is the KEV. And let me just deep dive into the KEV. So the KEV stands for the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog of CISA. So again, it's a CISA-owned database, which contains all of the vulnerabilities that CISA knows that were exploited, or that have any exploitation kits available in the wild. So whether if there is an available exploit kit, or whether a specific threat actor exploited a given CVE. So as you can see, the main data point is CVEs, and it is updated daily, and it's based on many sources. As you can see, cybersecurity experts, threat intelligence agencies, and open source information, of course. And what I would suggest for security teams to do with the KEV is to use that as a source in their internal workflow. So add it to essentially add it as a source to the SIEM system. So first, because CISA wants organizations to integrate the KEV into their internal workflow, first you can create a daily process that pulls this data. This is, of course, I think I didn't mention, this is, of course, available in the website as well. So you can go over the UI on your own before pulling it, of course. So step one is to get the catalog and embed it into your SIEM platform. The second step is to match results of your security or network scanner with entries of the KEV. So an alert will be created each time your scanner fetches or detects a given vulnerability that exists in the KEV catalog, and then prioritize your remediation based on those alerts. I would suggest security organizations to first tackle CVEs or vulnerabilities that are being exploited in the wild or that have exploit kits available, because attackers are lazy. They want the easiest way in, and once an exploited kit is available, everyone abuses it, and organizations are being breached. So this is from me to you. Okay, moving on. Where the KEV automation takes place in the process I showed you initially, it takes place in the prioritization step. So once all of your scanners, network scanners, finished running, you have many results, and you match those results with the KEV, so you can start remediating the stuff that is exploitable. So this is where it belongs. Okay, how would I how I'm seeing, like, what is the perfect process I have in my mind for that end-to-end process? The first is to run a single network scanner. It reduces complexity. So all of the asset types, I mean, all of the host types like IPs, web applications, and so on, can be scanned in one place. Second step, once gaining those results, you want the results to be credible. You want them to be high confidence results. So this is what I would want as a security practitioner, having less false positives as possible, of course. Then I would like that tool to dynamically prioritize those issues based on CISA KEV as well, as long as other sources, threat intel, and so on. But I want the prioritization to be done dynamically. So not only based on the CVSS base score, but using other calculations as well. Again, to me, as a security practitioner, I want to focus on the stuff that matters. I want to manage my risk efficiently. So those are the first vulnerabilities to tackle. The ones that, of course, the CVSS score matters because uh, um, as more critical it is, so it can cause more harm to the organization. But again, it is important to take into consideration the exploitation of that CV. And of course, the last step is remediation, which is the same as the same for all flows, because um, usually the remediating entity is outside of the security team, so we can't affect it. And that's it. That's it from my end. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Eilon. Thank you for the excellent presentation. It looks like we have some questions from the audience, so we'll take those now. The first question is, should I prioritize CVSS ranked vulnerabilities, CISA KEV vulnerabilities, or a combination of both when focusing on which issues to remediate right away?
Well, as I mentioned, I would use not only the base score. I would consider prioritizing based on CISA as well, because the CISA KEV has the vulnerabilities that were exploited in the past. So I would focus on those vulnerabilities first. So yeah, the answer is yes. I would use both, like both CVSS base score and the CISA KEV.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is, how do I set up an automatic feed via SIEM to capture the CISA KEV vulnerabilities?
So I would first create a script that pulls daily, hourly, just name it, that pulls the CISA KEV from the website, from the official website, and feeds it into the SIEM, and use that as a single source that, again, I match with other results I already got from my network scanners, and use that match to prioritize those vulnerabilities and to create alerts as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for that context. The next question is, what is the best way to reduce false positive results with the network scanner?
Well, that's a tricky one. Of course, it depends on the scanner you're using. Some scanners have more false positives than others. But if the scanner you're using has like quality field or confidence field that represents how certain the scanner is with a given finding, I would of course focus on the results that have the highest certainty or probability.
Okay, great. And the final question we have so far is, do you have any recommendations to speed up my mean time to remediation based on the highest priority vulnerabilities?
Yeah. What I would do, I would try to group the issues I've got, the vulnerabilities my scanner detected, into groups of assets. So I would first remediate the issues, the issues with the highest severity that belong to the same asset. So I would try to resolve the most critical issues, as many critical issues as possible, because they belong to a single asset. So I would try to group issues into assets and try to remediate the assets that have the highest number of issues, and of course the most severe issues first.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. So like a package delivery kind of method
Yeah,
to tackle
exactly.
something. That's interesting. Great. So that appears to be all the questions that we have for today. So I want to thank you, Eilon, for this excellent presentation and for your participation in the program today. And thank you to the audience for all of your thoughtful questions, as usual. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, cheers. Thank you, everybody.